Welcome back to a book hot take. If you're new here, my name is Gabby. This is my page where we do all things book reviews, book hot takes, book everything. I was going to let this be a review for If It Bleeds by Stephen King, and I didn't finish it. And I love to read the one-star reviews of books I didn't finish, but I thought I would use this opportunity to talk about the fact that I've recently decided I don't like Stephen King. It hurts to say that because as somebody who has a first degree in literature and has kind of loved horror, mystery, thriller, I think for a long time I told people that I was a Stephen King fan just because I thought I would be, but I never actually read his books. I think in like 2016, I read The Outsider and I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. I felt kind of disengaged from listening to it at the time. And so recently when I got back into reading, I said, you know what? I have a house in Maine. I visited Stephen King's house. I am very interested in this genre. I should read him. He's a classic novelist for a reason. So I picked up the Holly Gibney series because I saw somewhere that if you're going to read Stephen King, this was a great place to start because Holly Gibney, I guess, is a very loved character. So if you don't know what the Holly Gibney series is, I'm going to put like a little diagram up here. It is Mr. Mercedes, Finders Keepers, End of Watch, The Outsider, If It Bleeds, Holly, and Never Flinch. And Holly is I don't know if the writing of her character gets any better, but she's very much neurodivergent coded. She's giving potentially that she's autistic. She doesn't really like to talk to people. She likes to be very isolated. And I feel that her as a character is very infantilized, at least in the books that I read to. As you can tell, I was on If It Bleeds, so I have read Mr. Mercedes, Finders Keepers, End of Watch, and The Outsider before I stopped reading and did not finish If It Bleeds, because I was like, at this point, I'm this many books in and I don't like it. I don't think I'm going to. So I took all of them off of my Libby hold list and I'm moving on with my life. But yes, to go back to Holly, I feel like she's kind of infantilized. I didn't really enjoy her as a character, but apparently people love her. Another thing about Stephen King, and I will say what I do like about him, is he does truly write like a classic novelist. He's got all of the works of a good novelist. There's foreshadowing, there's description, there's themes, there's the imagery. It's definitely different than some of the contemporary novels we see now that are very fast paced, very quick, very just kind of attention grabbing. And I think that what he does really well is he has incredibly grotesque descriptions of things. Like when I am reading, I am very like disgusted with what I'm reading, which I think is part of what he does well. And I think he has really cool, innovative horror concepts, and that's why people like him. Sometimes I feel like when you're reading thriller, if you've read one, you've read them all. And unless they have this like crazy twist ending, it's not enjoyable. And I find that nowadays people are trying so hard for a twist ending that they have too many twists, or the person who it is wasn't even really related to the book at all. And Stephen King has a great way of kind of coming up with new concepts. But I think what he does bad, he does really, really bad. And I cannot promote him here. And nor do I even really want to read for that reason. So the things he does bad are he makes a lot of questionable writing decisions, and a lot of them I'm surprised by because I've done my research into Stephen King, and other than the fact that he is claiming the Epstein files aren't real, he seems to be very liberal in his views. He even kind of writes his characters from a more liberal perspective. But the first really horrible thing he does, and I think even with all the things that come after it, I don't need to say any more than the fact that he loves using the N-word. Less so now in like more new books that he's writing, but in older books, he just loves throwing out the N-word. And I've seen the argument because there is a Stephen King Reddit and those guys are diehard fans. And I'm sure if you're coming across this and you are a diehard fan, leave me a comment because even bad engagement's good engagement. But they'll say like, oh, well, he uses the N-word because he wants you to know that they're a bad guy. Hey, brother, I hate to break it to you, but he was a bad guy when he started murdering people. And I figured it out pretty quickly. He was a bad guy when he was poisoning people. I figured that out. And they throw it around. And the other like really horrible thing that I think Stephen King does, and maybe this isn't him, maybe it's the publishers, but when I'm an audiobook listener, I'm listening to this audiobook with a presumed white man reading me the audiobook, just hard R N-word, throwing it out there. Why are we doing that? In the year of our Lord, Trisha Paytas 2025, there is absolutely no reason to be throwing out the N-word in any context? Why have we not gone back and taken it out of every single book, right? You can leave a blank space there. We know what you're trying to say. There are ways to go about doing this in a respectful way. Honestly, he could go back and completely even just like change, he could get rid of the whole line, and I think the book would be just as effective. So that is issue number 1. Issue number 2 is, and I don't know if this is a Stephen King issue or a publisher audiobook issue, but I feel that he does Black people an injustice in the stereotypes. At least in this series, we encounter one main Black kid. I want to say, I don't remember his name specifically, but every time he talks, he has this kind of very stereotypical, stupid Southern drawl, which I think is interesting. I hope I'm saying that right, by the way. It's a very interesting way to go about it, because this is a guy that they also talk about, he's incredibly smart and he's going to college. So like, I don't know if it's that Stephen King is doing it or if it's the audiobook reader that's doing it, but I almost felt like I was reading a really heinous, or listening to a really heinous stereotype of a Black person, as opposed to reading about like this very intelligent character who just also happens to be Black. And I think it definitely may be more of an audiobook narrator issue, but you can't tell me Stephen King doesn't know what his audiobooks sound like. So that's an issue for me. Second issue, little diversity altogether. I know that there's this kind of big movement right now for people to be encouraging others to only read books that have diversity, or only be reading books from diverse authors. And I will say, like most people, I just pick up a book and read it. And if I find out later that this person is problematic or has any other issues, I will actively not promote them and not seek out their books again. But I do think, however, that it continues to blow my mind that there's just a lack of diversity in books at all, because there's not a lack of diversity in our life. So every time I pick up a book and all of the characters are white, I'm like, make it make sense. And maybe that's just a personal view because I am Hispanic, so I've been surrounded by diversity my whole life, but it feels not right. Another thing that Stephen King does that I don't enjoy is he loves talking about, and trigger warning right here, okay? Trigger warning for children and abuse. I'm going to leave that here. If you don't like that, you can exit this video, leave this video, whatever you want, like and subscribe if you like hanging out. Otherwise, I'm going to hop into it now. So he loves talking about intercourse among children. I have not read it, but I discovered through people who have and discourse on social media that the end of it is, which is the book with the clown, is apparently all of the kids who go in fighting it, and they are under the age of like 13. They just have like a lot of intercourse at the end with one another. And why? What did that aid to the book? And I don't know, if Mr. Stephen King wants to pull up in these comments and let me know himself, I'd be more than happy to hear it out. But I don't think in any way that could possibly aid to the book. I do understand that they experience a collective trauma. Collective trauma makes us do crazy things, but I don't think that it needed to be done in that manner. In that same line, he loves to talk about, as like part of what makes these people like bad characters, child schmexual assault. I don't know what you're allowed to say or not say on YouTube, and I'm not making money off any of these videos, so I could probably say whatever I want, but I don't want to have this kind of taken down. I do think that I understand why he puts these parts of the story in, right? He's talking about these like villains of the story, and they've experienced this very niche, horrible, graphic tragedy of child schmexual assault. And however, I don't think as a reader, I need to know the thoughts of that character as that was happening, right? I don't need to know how this character was confused about if they liked it or not because they're young and they don't know. I think that that's really messed up, and there's no trigger warning at the front of the book, and you don't know that you're going to fall into that. But I feel like out of all the books I read, more than 2 of them had this discourse. It felt very weird, very inappropriate. I did not personally need to know. And I just think that with somebody who's as creative and innovative as he is, there doesn't need to be these types of plot devices to let us know that somebody's a bad person, right? You can address that happened and maybe that played into why they're making the negative decisions that they're making now. And I also don't need to know all the finite details. So that is my thoughts on Stephen King. If you're a diehard fan and you think I need to reconsider this opinion, let me know in the comments below. If you also don't like Stephen King, let me know in the comments below. If you feel like maybe I'm just reading all the wrong books and should try something else, let me know. If you like what I had to say, you like listening to me yap, and you like being here, please like and subscribe. I love having you here, and I will see you in my next video.